Hey guys. So last time I talked about motivation and finding time to write, and today I just wanted to talk about finding inspiration to write. Because inspiration and motivation are two completely different things that really help your writing in a different way. Finding the time and the motivation, it gets you going, it gets you to a place where you can be writing, it gets you all pumped up to write. But finding inspiration is a whole other challenge that you have to figure out. Because when you write every single day, like I do when I'm in novel writing mode, you need to make sure that you're going to have something to write every single day. Or else you're just going to be stuck there and you won't know what to do. And it'll be really demoralizing. And you'll just feel like you're wasting your time. Even if you have the motivation, even if you have the time, even if you have the discipline, without having some idea of what you're going to write that day, you're not going to get very far. And I think finding the proper inspiration for whatever genre you're writing is a big part of solving the what am I going to write conundrum. For me, I write science fiction. I write futuristic science fiction. It's very realistic. There's a lot of actual science and actual physics in it. And I don't go into like insane detail and it's all technical. It is very much a conceptual book. Like it's something that anyone can pick up and understand what's going on because those things are explained in general terms. I've actually written entire posts explaining how some of the science works, and I plan to keep on doing that once I, ironically, have the time. When it comes to me getting inspiration, I focus a lot on research because I'm trying to create these futuristic worlds that are not only fun and imaginative, but worlds that people could truly see themselves going and visiting. And that just doesn't include the politics, that includes the nature. And nature is something that I love putting into my books because there's just so much that you can do with nature, especially when the main characters of your books are from a planet that is devoid of nature. I think that's a trope in the sci-fi genre, is starting out on a world that isn't all that interesting and expanding beyond it because it gives you that sense of adventure. So that's why a lot of sci-fi starts on like a barren planet and expands out into new and great adventures and wonders. And another trope of science fiction is doing exactly the opposite. Starting out in this great and wondrous world and condensing it down to this place that isn't all that great for the main characters. And that takes on a whole new storyline, a whole new plot. That would generally surround like a struggle instead of an adventure. There would definitely be more internal psychological conflict in that situation. So for inspiration, I do a lot of research. I watch a lot of videos, especially documentaries. I watched about 50 hours of documentaries when I was writing Resonance, because Daliona is such a rich world with a variety of ecosystems and a ton of new animals and plants and wildlife and whatnot. So part of the main challenge of developing Daliona as a planet was creating the ecosystems of the planet and the different ecosystems that would appear in specific regions across the planet. And my goal as the writer was to make these settings come to life in the most accurate way possible. And by doing all this research, by watching all those documentaries, you're going to see the diversity across this entire planet. So using that kind of research kind of inspires me. Like it's exciting to keep learning about these new places and to keep discovering all these different environments that I can create and all these different settings for these different societies and how the people of the story function within the environments and societies. Because another big theme of my series overall is like spreading life throughout the galaxy, and so terraforming planets and making them habitable for not only humans but for other life forms is something that keeps popping up. And you'll even see it on the website experiencedaliona.com. And so for writing Resonance, that's what kept driving me forward, was using the inspiration that I was getting from studying these different topics. Another way to find inspiration, at least again for me, is being around people and seeing how people interact and like paying attention to politics, paying attention to world events. Because in my opinion, there's also a lot of inspiration to be drawn out of like international relations and international conflict and trying to understand where every country is coming from and how the actions of some countries affect the actions and responses of other countries, and seeing how politicians would react in those situations too. And that's a big driving force behind my series, is you're witnessing this one singular event on Belvoon, the fall of Belvoon, as its ecosystems collapse basically. And you get to see how the fall of Belvoon is affecting the rest of the interplanetary community. Not only on Undil, but on Deliona, there's some Narvid, and like the people the characters interact with, they all have their own opinions on how to deal with this situation and what they think of the response from the rest of the interplanetary community. I think the complexity of the political affairs adds to the realism of the story, and it's kind of up to you to decide who you agree with. Because it's very unclear, I think, who is correct in the situation when it comes to dealing with the conflicts that are going on around the galaxy all at the exact same time. Other ways that you can get inspiration, a big one is reading. Reading other books kind of introduces you to other styles of writing and kind of lets you see how other authors organize their thoughts and let their stories play out. I can tell you right off the bat, Embassy, the first book in my current series, was largely influenced by John Green and the way that he writes his books. But that didn't carry through in Resonance. Resonance, the second book in my current series, was largely influenced by George R.R. Martin in Game of Thrones. Because it's a lot more expansive. It opens up the universe and it kind of draws things out. So the plot isn't as streamlined as Embassy was. But at the same time, you just get to see so much more of the world of the universe. And you get to have some fun too, because there's the gravity runs, there's the cyclosuits, there's a reference to Quidditch with cyclosuits, the lucidity arcades, the gravity elevator and the space elevator. All these different elements of the story that I think, had I kept it more streamlined as a plot, that I wouldn't have been able to touch on. And I would have had a very difficult time even getting to know my own world. I'm not really sure where my style for Perheolid, Book 3, came from. It's definitely different than Embassy, and definitely different than Resonance. Even though Perheolid is still a very emotional book, it's much more concentrated as a plot as compared to Embassy, and definitely as compared to Resonance. The setting for Perheolid is pretty confined, so the events of the story had to be very specific and very deliberate so that the plot could keep moving forward and you weren't just hanging there just waiting for something to happen. And I think I definitely did a better job of that in Perheolid than I did in Embassy. If you know what I'm talking about in Embassy, then you'll understand that it can get very drawn out. So I think I definitely improved upon how I handled those parts of Embassy. Other places of inspiration, your own life. My books draw heavily on my own life. And I hope that it doesn't come off as unnatural. I think it flows very smooth through the books. I think if I didn't tell people that, hey, this story is actually kind of a true story throughout the entire first 3 books of the series, that people would kind of just be like, oh, where'd this storyline come from? Like, how'd you think of that? Not everything in my books came from my life. Some of the events in my books actually preceded events in my life. It's kind of weird. But overall, I think weaving reality with fiction is a very good way to make the book relatable to readers. I've had several people tell me that Armin Lance, the main character of Embassy and Resonance and Perheolid, was a very relatable character. It's a very emotional story that follows Armin's internal journey as he develops as a character. And that is very much the point of books 1 through 3, is showing this emotional journey and kind of seeing how Armin opens up as a character, because at the very beginning of the story, he's a very isolated character with a chip on his shoulder, and he's kind of just like, get me out of here, I don't even care anymore. And so seeing his transition between books 1 and 2, as the people who've read it know, it's a very big transition, because Armin's journey overall is finding his purpose, not only his happiness, but his purpose. So yeah, those are just some of the ways that I find inspiration to write my books. So what are some ways that you guys find inspiration to write your books? Do you do research? Do you read other books to see what style you're drawn to? Do you take from your own life? Do you go outside and just experience nature? I'd love to hear all the different ways that you guys write your books, and I'd also love to hear what your word counts are in Nano. How far are you? So leave your comments and ideas below. Like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in my next video. As always, if you haven't yet, check out my books, Embassy and Resonance. Periheliod, I'm going to start editing in a couple weeks. That's book 3. For Nano, I'm writing book 4. And be sure to check out the website, experiencedaliona.com. And I hope you guys enjoy.